and welcome to Lesson 9 in our Acoustic Guitar series to make your playing more interesting. Today we're going to be focusing on an important genre of music, the blues. Now this is a really important genre to learn, and it's remained largely unchanged in the last 100 years, specifically if you're looking at the 12-bar blues, which is what we're going to be talking about today. On acoustic guitar this is usually played with a slide and using other tunings, but we're going to stay in standard tuning because you're more likely to practice something if it's in standard tuning, so you have to retune your whole guitar each time. But if you do enjoy this style of music and you become obsessed with it, start looking into the Delta blues, which is what Robert Johnson was very famous for, and this is where a lot of these ideas I'm borrowing, not stealing, I'm borrowing them, have come from today. So we're going to be also learning how to improvise this so that we can make it up as we go along, which is a really fun thing to do on guitar, and it means you can have hours and hours of fun just playing around this stuff. I certainly do. Now the other good thing about doing this is that thousands of blues songs follow this 12-bar progression. All you need to do is change the lyrics and in some cases the key. But for today's lesson the whole thing is going to be in the key of E because we want to keep this bass line nice and simple. That way we've got the low E string for one note, the A string, and then for one bar this second fret on the B, second fret in the note B on the A string. The first step in playing a 12-bar blues and playing it in this acoustic style is to start with just the open strings. So we're going to have 4 bars of E. This is our bass line. Make sure that it's nice and consistent and you're not getting nice quiet notes in between all those loud ones. One more bar of E. We're going to change to A string, and the E string. 1, 2, 3, 4, and then B, then A, then E. And this last 2 bars is actually known as the turnaround, and we're going to be playing with that in a minute. It's a characteristic of the blues we're going to be talking about. So it's important to practice that bass line and make sure it's nice and solid before you go anywhere else, because this is the key to doing this stuff. Lots of guitarists struggle with this because it has that consistent bass line and you need some independence. So we're going to start by learning our example blues from the beginning of this lesson. Step by step, nice and slowly, we get stealth tuning. So we can start off with a hammer-on. This is all based around an E major chord or an E7. We add in that pinky, but we're going to be using a different finger for that because it's mostly open strings, and why use our pinky if we don't have to? So we're going to start with a hammer-on, playing our E. Is always going to be on the beat. If you look through our example here, you look through the music, that E and that bass line is going to be consistent on every single beat, and that's what keeps it driving. And it's also important to note here we're using the blues shuffle rhythm throughout the whole thing. So we're not going 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3, 4. You want to move all those half beats back a tiny bit and get this swung rhythm. Way more interesting. A bit more tuning there. Perfect. Professional would have tuned before he started, but I did. It's gone out of tune already. So we're going to start the E string and the G at the same time. We're going to hammer on with that pointer finger, and then we're going to hit the open high E string. E string, low E string, and then B. Then we get that 3rd fret on the B string with our bass note, high E string, low E, high E string. Then we're going to slide this note. Oh, that's bluesy. Open string, 3rd fret, and open string. Another way to practice this is just to look at the melody. So we get another really good way, and then marry the 2 parts together. And then bars 3 and 4. This nice shape. It's important to slide into those. And we move to our A pattern for 2 bars, sorry. And that last note there, you can play it so you can hammer on with that first beat. I'm always terrible at that, so I put it in just that tiny bit earlier. Okay, so just the melody on that A. And then this bar of 2 bars of E is very similar to the first 2 bars of E. build up, a little climb to that B. You'll notice that the B bar is really easy. B bar is very, very easy to play because we are holding that note down here, so we don't want to be jumping around too much with these fingers when we've got to try and hold a note steady. Then we got A, and then a turnaround. Turns the song around back to the beginning, so we can play the whole thing again. So I'm just going to play the melody all the way through. Sounds pretty cool when you add in all those bass notes. Pretty cool, pretty fun to play. Who needs a bass player? Sorry, bass players. To start improvising this rather than playing through an example I've just made up, you need to dissect that example. Always start with a written piece and then look at all the different things we can do with it. So the first step is to look at these rhythms. When you look through that whole 12 bars of music, there are only really 4 different rhythms to play around with. You can play both notes at the same time, so on the beat, so you can do your thumb and your finger. Here's example A. We can do one and then the other. So 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and we can do both together followed by just the finger. Or we can do a triplet. I like to do it with a hammer on, but you can go with some of the examples. There is that example in bar 4 where we get the 3 together. That's not a much different practice, not that different to practice and put it in there. So we had together, one after the other, together then finger, and then the hammer on triplet. It might seem silly to pick it apart this much, but the more you get used to doing this stuff, the more it's going to come out and you're improvising when you're playing around with this. So in order to improvise, we need to look at the scales we're going to use. So acoustic blues tends to lend itself to open position scales just because we've got this bass note down here. We can jump all the way up the fretboard here and start playing around with some different scales up here. But it makes more sense, in my opinion, to stick down here. You can always, as you practice and get better with this, you can build your way up the fretboard and start using all this. I'll try and keep the bass note consistent rather than freestyling it. Now, to start this, we're going to be looking at 2 different scale shapes. We're going to have an open position scale. As this is all in the key of E, we're going to be using the E blues scale, and I've added in one little note for colour, which is our major second interval, which works really, really well, sliding into that minor third right there on the high E string, the 2nd fret. So we start with our D string open, then our 2nd fret, then on the G we get the open string, and then the 2nd fret, and then that flat 5 interval, very, very bluesy. Right there. I always think of the film Lethal Weapon with this. Eric Clapton did all the music for that, that's why it's incredibly bluesy. That's my understanding anyway. If I'm wrong, correct me in the comments. So we had our 3rd fret on the G, then we had our open B string, 3rd fret on the B string, open high E string, then the 2nd fret. That works really, really well sliding into there. So we get our 2nd fret on the high E string and then the 3rd fret. So the whole scale sounds like this. You'll notice I've left out the E and the A string deliberately because that's mostly going to be sticking to our bass line. And that is our very, very first position to improvise with. And then our second position is in the second position, and it's going to be following on from this scale. We're going to start with the 2nd fret on the D string, 5th fret of our pinky right there on the D string, 2nd fret on the G, 3rd fret, that's our flat 5th again, very bluesy, 2nd fret, 3rd fret, then 4th fret on the G, then we're going to do 3rd fret on the B, 3rd fret on the B again, 5th fret, sorry, on the B, 3rd fret on the high E string, 5th fret on the high E string, and then the 6th fret, all the way up here, which is again our octave of our blues note. Diabolos in musica right there. Sounds disgusting on its own, it works very well in blues. Oh, that was a horrible noise. Play this stuff for hours, get very, very carried away. So you can improvise with this using those previous rhythms and go really, really slowly to begin with. I would practice each one together. So by doing that, you're going to play through the scale shape. Rhythm A and then rhythm B. Two together. Don't get carried away like I just did there. It's weird when you get the 2 notes on one string, 3 notes on one string. And do it with the second position as well. And then you can practice it with triplets. 1, 2. What am I doing? Just like that. There we go. That took some thought process there. Some mental prowess and mental power. And that is the best way of practicing this. We haven't got a lot of time to practice. We've got busy lives. You can squish the 2 ideas together. You can practice the rhythms and you can practice the scales. Combine them both together and practice using them musically. If you spend hours just practicing the rhythms and hours just going... Something I used to get all the time with my students. They would say, why do my solos not sound like solos? They sound like I'm playing scales up and down. And the answer usually is, that's how you practice them. You're only going to play this stuff how you practice it. So if you spend hours just playing the scale up and down, don't be surprised if it's going to sound like playing the scale up and down. You need to practice playing music with it. We're now going to take a moment to study the anatomy of the 12-bar blues. It's called the 12-bar blues because it's 12 bars long. It does what it says on the tin. So we're going to start with our 4 bars of E, and then you have 2 bars of A, 2 bars of E, bar of B, bar of A, and then either E or you get a 2-bar turnaround for the final 2 bars. And a quick note here, you can actually change and have a bar of A, it's called a quick change, on beat, bar number 2, and then go back to E. So you get 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then back to E. It breaks the monotony of those first 4 bars. Most of the variations in blues are about breaking out of those first 4 bars, because those first 4 bars are just hitting E, get very, very dull. We're only halfway. I'm sure everybody's already bored. Thank you for sticking with me if you are bored. You will learn something, I promise. And then you'd move to A. So you can throw in those 4 beats of A on the second bar if you so wish. Also, bars 11 and 12, as I said before, it's called a turnaround. It's usually a little sequence which can be played, which just turns the song around and takes it back to the beginning so that you can repeat the whole thing. Or if you're coming out of playing a solo and going into singing, or if you're coming out of singing and going into a solo, it just sort of tells the listener that you've reached the end. And it can also be used as the introduction to the piece of music as well. So speaking of turnarounds, there are literally thousands of these in existence. All guitarists have their favorites. The best thing to do is to pick sort of 5 or 6, maybe as many as 10. I've got 10 examples for you here today out of sheer coincidence. Until I look at my notes and realize there's 10 examples to show you. Pick out your favorites, see what you like the sound of, practice them, dissect them, get them into your playing, and you'll be able to add them in, and they're completely interchangeable. They're like puzzle pieces. You can just put them to the last 2 bars anywhere whenever you play a blues. You can play one of these turnarounds as long as that blues is in E. For bonus credit, you can take each of these turnarounds and work out how to play them in different keys and without open strings. That's the trick. Get rid of the open strings, replace them with fretted notes, and you can play them in different keys and make them more accessible. So I'm just going to play through these turnarounds one after the other with a little break in between so you can follow them. I'm going to play each one twice. So turnaround number 1. also good to note with these turnarounds, you can actually take the last half of the second bar for each one, and you can actually swap those around a little bit. So I wouldn't recommend, if you're ending playing your blues, finishing with this doesn't sound finished. I would hit the low E string afterwards, or I'd swap out one of those turnarounds for, so you get, always finish and resolve it, because otherwise you're creating tension. As the amazing guitarist Guthrie Govan once said, you're hurting people if you sit on these chords for too long. That brings us to an end of lesson 9 about our blues. Hopefully this has given you a really good start in this genre. It's a really important genre to learn. There's always that famous movie Back to the Future, where Marty McFly turns to the band, having gone back in time, and says, okay, it's a 12-bar blues in A, follow me for the changes and try to keep up. Lots of people wonder why it's like a Bollywood dance routine and suddenly everyone knows what they're doing. It's because he gave the musicians everything they need to know. It was a 12-bar blues. It was in the key of A, and they had to try and keep up, so they were going to play it quite quickly. So if you turn up to a jam night or play with other guitarists, chances are everybody is going to know what a 12-bar blues is. Everyone might be a little bit sick with it, but because it's only 3 chords, it means most people can play it, and it means also that there's a lot of fun improvising over it. You can throw in some very crazy, outlandish things. But of course, today we're talking about playing it as a solo acoustic blues, which also makes it really fun. It's great to have some blues songs in your repertoire because not many people hear them very often, particularly with singing. So there's only going to be a couple more lessons in this series. If there's anything in particular you found you've struggled with or you'd like a different opinion on, please do leave a comment below on Facebook, on YouTube, sorry. You can also contact me on Facebook. It's absolutely fine. I always try and respond to messages there. It's great to hear how people are getting on. Do subscribe on YouTube, follow me on Facebook, find out what else is going on, because there's going to be more lessons to come. And we're wrapping up with our acoustic guitar series, so there's also going to be lessons in the future about beginner playing. There's going to be lessons about electric guitar, there's going to be some theory lessons, there's also going to be some lessons about ukulele and mandolin, and we're going to cover everything electric guitar wise, from how to play country through to rock stuff, funk stuff, all that kind of stuff. So I'm going to try and make people as varied and add as much variety as possible. So thanks for sticking with me, and we'll see you again next time.